My name is Bill Whitney. I am a composer and sound designer here at Harmonix.
I'm Chris Wilson, also composer, sound designer, lead of the pro guitar team, as it were.
I've just been doing this since I was a kid. I started playing in band when I was in 5th grade, played trumpet, and was a huge band dork, and went to college for tuba. I think that's about as band dorky as it gets. Mostly these days I just play bass. Funny, you get a lot more work playing bass than you do playing tuba. Who knew? I taught high school band for about 5 years after college, and this job just sort of fell in my lap, and I took it. And I've never really done anything like this. I mean, I have lots of experience recording music and doing lots of different kinds of audio engineering, but never done anything quite like this. So it's kind of been sort of a new adventure for me the last few years that I've been here.
I come from a pretty musical family. My dad's a drummer, my mom's a pianist. So ever since I was a little kid, I've been banging on drums and pianos and all kinds of stuff. Picked up my first guitar when I was 13 or so, and fell in love with playing and fell in love with music. Went to college actually for classical guitar, as well as sound recording technology.
I took piano lessons for like a month, I think, when I was really small, but the first instrument that I ever actually learned how to play was trumpet when I was a kid.
Piano was probably the first instrument I put any time into when I was, in like 2nd, 3rd grade. Like everybody takes piano lessons when you're that age. I wish I knew how to play the cello. I love the cello.
Like I said, I used to teach high school band, so it's kind of a prerequisite to the job that you can at least play a little bit of kind of whatever. There are a whole lot of instruments I wish I played a lot better.
Me too.
But yeah, I don't know, I think bassoon would be cool. I really suck at bassoon. I think the most fun I've had playing music was played in this ska band called Frank is Bigger Than You for like 3 years when I was in college. Played trombone in that band, and we just had a blast. It was just, the music was really fun, the band was good, we were really good friends, and it's just such a kind of interactive style of music between the bands and the audiences, and wherever you go, people go kind of crazy for it, and in the little tiny pocket of subculture that appreciates ska,
It's very small.
Yeah, it is. But we had them all. That was just a lot of fun. Of all of the projects I've been involved with, that was probably like the most fun band or ensemble that I've worked with.
I actually had a pretty similar situation when I was in high school. I don't know if I call this the fondest memory, but it kind of reminded me of this. When I was in high school, my group of friends, we were all very musical, and I kind of started a band, like a basic 4-piece, but it just so happened that the rest of our group of friends all played like all the instruments you need for a ska horn section. So we decided to start a ska band, and I played drums for some reason, probably because I was the only one, because I used my dad's kit. It was so much fun to just hang out with your friends and write weird horn charts, and we ended up, this is so weird, this is such a weird story, but in our town, we somehow hooked up with this guy who was like a budding comic book artist, and he was releasing his very first comic book, and he ran a comic book store. And he wanted to have a release party, and for some reason he asked us to play in the basement of this weird comic book store.
I didn't really mean to. Like I said, I was teaching high school band, and I love teaching. The school where I was teaching was really not necessarily a great situation, a great place to be teaching music. and I was just real frustrated dealing with that situation. And you know, this job just popped up. My brother-in-law actually was looking for an IT job, and he found this posting and was like, dude, you have to do this, you know? And so I just applied for it and came and interviewed. They sent me some kind of audition material that I had to do some transcriptions and whatnot, and it just kind of happened, you know? This is not a thing that I'd ever aspired to or really even thought about until I think I'd played Guitar Hero like once or twice before I got this job. I think maybe I'd played Rock Band once. I didn't know anything about Harmonix. I didn't really know anything about the video game industry. I didn't have a game console. But, you know, it was really time for me to do something different, and this just popped up, and it's been a really fantastic experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar for me. I mean, my job before this, I was working at Boston University in their recording studio at their School of Music, which was a fine job, but it was only like a 9-month-a-year gig, and it basically like involved recording student recitals and faculty recitals, stuff like that. And, you know, it was all very nice, but it was missing like that creative element, you know, and I really felt like I wasn't, you know, getting anything out of the job. I was being purely like an archivist, basically, rather than somebody who's like active in the creative process. And I think that's more than anything else was like the impetus for me to try and find a job with a game developer, you know, because I could have that kind of creative input and feel like I'm having like a positive impact on the way, you know, what the final product is.
Well, this actually sounds kind of cheesy to say, but our audio director here, Eric Brocious, is ridiculously good.
Yeah, he's a giant.
And you know, he's worked on some really killer games, and just seeing the work that he's done here, he's really, really good. And it's actually really cool to be in a situation where not only am I surrounded by like all my peers here are all like fantastic musicians, fantastic audio engineers, whatever aspect, like whatever their musical niche is, you know, everybody around here is really good at what they do, which is great. But you know, I'm kind of in what I feel like is sort of a unique position where my boss, you know, the guy I'm working for, is like ridiculously good at what we do, you know, and in terms of sound design and creating music and sound for video games, like there's just so much to be learned from his experience.
You know, one of the games that actually had the most profound effect on me, like actually looking back on it now, is like the original Myst. You know, because I mean that was like a formative like time, like, you know, when I was a kid, and like PC games were like first like really starting to become like almost like works of art, right? And I just remember like playing Myst and like the way that they did the sound design and the way they did like the compositions, like very, very sparse, but so mood appropriate. It just so enhanced my kind of my enjoyment of the game, like really pulled me into that world. You know, I think that was probably like the first time like I really realized like, or even like really paid attention to, you know, the audio elements of video games and how they affect, you know, mood and perception and that kind of stuff. Pretty much anything I listened to in high school. Like, you know, I mean, that stuff just sticks with you, you know? You know, I listened to a lot of actually classic rock when I was a younger kid because my parents always had it on the radio. Like whenever they were doing anything, it was always like, it was WAAF way back in the day when it was still the Rock and Roll Air Force.
Yeah.
Which was a long time ago. But I mean, you know, all kinds of like old great Led Zeppelin and Aerosmith and Pink Floyd and like all of the giants. You know, and then like in high school, it's like, you know, people started coming to their own musically. I was like a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan, you know, big Soundgarden fan, you know, a lot of those kinds of Stone Temple Pilots, you know, those like grungy acts, but still, there was still like a pretty high quality musicianship and songwriting and stuff like that.
Yeah, just kind of musical influences. I've had a couple of like really, really amazing teachers along the way who have really shaped a lot about the way that I like play and the way that I think about music. Not necessarily even like how good I am at an instrument, but more like the way I like my musicality and my expressiveness in playing, and just the way that I approach music as an art form. Or like two guys when I was in college, Kevin Stees and Dave Pope, two of my professors that were just amazing musicians and amazing teachers that have had a really profound effect on me musically. And then, of course, Victor Wooten, Jaco Pastorius, Rocco Presti, like all those bass players that I wish I was.
Don't get frustrated, because it's easy to do. I mean,
yeah.
In popular culture, you're surrounded by and constantly bombarded by people who are fantastic at their instruments or fantastic at songwriting or anything like that. And sometimes, especially when you're first starting out, it can seem like, the distance between you and them is kind of like immeasurable, and like you're never going to get to that level. But they started where, you are, once upon a time, so just keep at it and don't give up.
I always think that question is really funny. When I was in college, we, had lots of master classes. Artists would come and do, a class for large groups. And Tom Malone, Bones Malone, like from the Blues Brothers movies and Saturday Night Live band and stuff, he came once. And naturally, when it was time for questions, that was the first question a student asked, right? Was, well, would you have any advice for us? And like deadpan, he says, quit. Like, that's it. He's like, it's the hardest thing in the world, and really, it's not worth it, and if I could do it again, I wouldn't. I think that's bad advice. No disrespect to Tom Malone, who is a monster, but...
He's gonna find you now.
Yeah, seriously. But I whenever I hear that question, that's what I always think of, and I think it's funny. But for me, there's really two things. The first one is you gotta have a thick skin. And when you receive feedback, when you receive criticism, take it for what it is. You can agree with it or not agree with it, but it's really, really important, and I think this goes for any kind of performing art, to separate your performance from yourself. And if you have a bad night and you don't play well, and you get off stage and you're like, man, I sucked. I don't suck, but I sucked. You know what I mean? It's really important to have that separation and have a thick skin about these things, because people are just gonna cut you down because that's their way of making themselves feel better, or because they're really jaded in the industry, or because they're having a bad day, or whatever. And you need to not take that to heart. You need to just have a thick skin and know that what you're working on is worth it to you, and you're making the progress that you want to make, provided that you are. And just that sort of separating your self-worth from your performance on any one day.